for me, it's very much about kind of dysfunctional families and recovery and that sort of thing. So yes, definitely, and I would agree. I'm in all of my characters to some degree, but they're not autobiographical. They're fragments. My characters are fragments of me.
Yeah, they're like when Joyce was talking about Molly Bloom, everybody presumed she was Nora. But he said, no, she's not Nora. She's an amalgam. Like, so there's bits of this person and bits of that person and bits of someone else. And yes, Nora looms large in the language and in the ideas and in the, the body stuff and all of that. But Molly is not Nora, so it's that kind of thing, isn't it? It's like, I think amalgams are what we're working in. We're taking bits and pieces from here and there. Like I take bits and pieces from everywhere. Everything I hear, if I hear a really nice phrase or word on a podcast, I will write that down, and I might bend it to my own purposes. I might just use one word, but it's all that you're like a little magpie, just picking things here, there, and everywhere, and then putting them into a notebook and seeing if they're going to be used, like it's like word hoarding or whatever, and depending on what you're, especially as a neurodivergent person, obsessed with at the time, different things will come out,
And mentioning words, I heard you say in an interview that it's all about the language for you.
Yeah.
And your prose is remarkable. It's been a huge influence on my own. And the language in Seaborne, what struck me, especially I loved the way the language changes from Kinsale to the Carolinas, and the soft, quick, those beautiful kind of phrases.
They're very Caribbean. Yeah, Caribbean sort of things. But she had to sound Irish and she had to sound American, but she also had to sound Caribbean because it's Bee's voice she's imitating. And Bee's mother was brought to the plantation from Barbados. So she has to sound like Bee and the other servants and enslaved people on the plantation in Carolina. So her voice is this weird mix and gather 'em. I had to make her sound a bit off kilter. So I gave her that thing that you will also hear in the Caribbean of using be for is, IB, kind of pirate language in a way, the language we're used to hearing on things like Pirates of the Caribbean. And that's kind of, it's tricky-ish to sustain throughout because you forget every so often. So that's where your editors and stuff come in. So yeah, I love voice and the sound of a thing, I just love something to sound a little bit to the left of what's expected. You hear all these ridiculous sort of things in creative writing world, like, oh, novels should be written in third person past tense. And it's like, stop, shut up, I love first person and I love the present tense, and nothing makes me want to do anything else. In fact, one of my novels was an experiment in the sense that, well, they're all experiments, aren't they? But one was an experiment in the sense that I did past tense third person, and I found it so hard. So I'm more naturally an in your ear storyteller. I want you to be the listener to my story, whoever is speaking, So I don't like absolutisms when it comes to writing. That, like, I also heard recently, because I'm writing a memoir about autism, I heard somebody say that the past tense is the tense of memoir. And again, I thought, nah, I can talk about the past while being in the present. So that's what I'm going to do, So I just don't agree with a lot of rules around creative writing that people go on with and don't sit with me at all. I think what you have to do as a writer is find your way and trust yourself and just forge ahead and not be like, I remember early on as a writer thinking that I had to do everything that other writers were doing. I remember hearing as a very new writer that Maeve Binchy wrote 2,500 words a day. I think I was at some kind of talk Maeve was given. And I thought, oh, 2,500 words a day, right. And then I realized what an enormous amount of wordage that was. And I was never going to do that. So I pared it down to, if I write 500 words a day, that's enough for me. And then in interview, I saw that Anne Enright says she would like to write 200 words a day. And I thought, well, if 200 is good enough for Anne, you know, that's good enough for the rest of us. So like literally it doesn't matter, you know, what anyone else is doing. You just do what you're doing yourself and what you're comfortable with and what you can manage. Like I'm very much a morning writer. I write 5 days a week in the morning because by the afternoon my head is frazzled and it's not good for creative stuff. I can do some artwork in the afternoon, but I would be more inclined to do administration or whatever it is I'm doing at the time, you know, other kind of work like mentoring or whatever it is, you know. So I think you find your voice and your feet, as they say, you learn the sea by sailing it. And I think you learn to be a writer by writing, and there's no other way to do it.
Yeah, my own discipline is 300 words a day.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, and Graham Greene was 500 words a day, and he would stop at 500 words, even if it was in the middle of a sentence.
Yeah, Hemingway did that too. He would just leave something sort of nearly with an ellipsis because then he knew he had somewhere to come back to. And I do like that idea, and I used to do that a lot, but yeah, just you find your way with it, and I just don't think it's important what anyone else is up to, really.
No, and I mean, for me, I think every writer has to reinvent writing for themselves, and voice comes out of that process.
And also, every new piece of writing you do, whether it's a story or a novel, is like going back to day one. It feels impossible. You know, until you get past a certain point, the thing feels stupid and unwieldy. It can feel exciting too. And I do have a sort of a early novel giddiness, but that's usually because I know something of what I'm doing. But sometimes when you really get to a point, I always have a sort of a mid-novel cri de coeur where I just don't know what the hell is going on and I hate it. I remember coming back from researching my Nora novel, coming back from Zurich, crying on the airplane because I thought, I actually can't do this. I can't, you know, it's too big. It's too big, you know, and then coming home and just getting back into the work and getting over myself, you know. So I think everyone there's a different mood, a different feeling to it. You're dealing with obviously different characters, different situations and all of it. But I mean, the joy is in that, isn't it? In, as we were saying earlier, the actual figuring out of this stuff, the sort of, you know, going down alleys where you haven't a clue what's down there or what you're going to do down there, but you desperately need and want to go there and figure it all out. That for me is the day-to-day writing is the best part of the whole thing.
Yes, absolutely, I agree with you, and which brings me to my next question, which is about editing. Because I'm in the process of editing 2 novels at the moment, and discussing with Brian Langan, my agent, the edits on one of them, and we've had emails back and forth, kind of agreement, disagreement, so on what way this novel should be structured. And of course, when I wrote it, it was perfect. It was a complete piece and ready to go.
Yeah.
And thankfully, Brian is one of the top editors in the country, so I fully trust him. And I had a eureka moment this morning when I got an email from Brian. So how do you find the editing process? How does it work for you, or do you need many edits at this point in your career?
Yeah, Brian is brilliant and you're lucky to have him. Yes, is the answer to do you need edits? Yes. I mean, some pieces of work emerge more smoothly than others. So Seaborne was in one form and it was my first draft and I was fairly happy with it. And then when my agent did her edit, it changed a bit. And then when Aoife in New Ireland did her edit, it changed a bit with their suggestions to me. And then for personal reasons, Aoife had to go off when the final edit was due. So she appointed an outside editor, a guy called Sean Farrell. And Sean is just some kind of genius. And he did such a brilliant, in-depth edit with me, and he made me see things I hadn't seen, and he made the book, you know, with me much better. And I'm so grateful to him. So I think editing is one thing. Good editing is a whole other ballgame. It's fantastic and it's a pleasure. And like that, your light bulb moment, you get them over and over with a good editor because they really can see the big picture where you're just floundering around inside, almost in the dark, because that objectivity is extremely difficult when you've been so close to something for so long. You know, you can't actually even see glaring mistakes. So it's great to get a brilliant editorial eye on stuff. And I love that. And I would recommend Sean to anyone. He does freelance work. He's a writer himself as well, which I think also helps because he has a feel for good material and good English or whatever. So I found him wonderful. So yeah, I do enjoy it when the editor is a very sensible and good editor. And I've had mixed experiences across the years, I'll say. I'll be diplomatic and say that.
I'm just aware of the time, Nuala. So just one briefly, can we look again at this cover, which is just so gorgeous.
Gorgeous, yeah.
And is there a story behind this, or was it presented to you as a kind of a...
Oh, New Ireland are brilliant. They showed me about 12 different images. We had a conversation and we made a Pinterest board, myself and Aoife Walsh in New Ireland. And then, so she knew what I kind of wanted, the kind of style I wanted. And then she appointed Karen Vaughan to design covers, and she designed about 12 covers. And we all landed on this image as the one that we liked the best. So then you have an image. My agent gets involved too, because she's very proactive in this cover thing. She's very, very tuned into it and very good at it. And it was Aoife who decided on the gold foil, which is absolutely magnificent. And yeah, delighted with it. And I was determined to have a blue cover because the book was originally called Blue Rush. But Sean said that sounds like a vape. So
It does actually, yes.
Yeah, he nixed that and I just laughed and said, yeah, you're right. So I had to brainstorm covers really kind of very much overnight because we were trying to go to first proofs, and I came up with Seaborne without the E, and then overnight in the middle of the night I sat up and I was like, with an E. So the next morning I sent an urgent email to say with an E. So that's how it was born. And yeah, Karen's design is wonderful, and it's blue and it's greeny and it's sea-like and, you know, sort of melancholic like me. So delighted with it, yeah.
And very evocative. So and yes, just looking at the time, maybe would you like to finish with another reading?
Yeah, I'll just read the first chapter, which is literally less than a page. And this is Anne learning to see, and what you understand is that her mother is wanting her to swim. And I actually called the prologue the Blue Rush so that I got Blue Rush in somehow. The Blue Rush, up, up, up I sail, thrust from mother's arms, I soar skyward, sand-specked toes leading, wind basting my bare torso. Behind on shore, I feel the beat of father's concern, the thrum of mother's glee. High to the blue above I travel, a small robust bird for one short spell. But what rises to the heavens must descend, and down I drop now, as intended, into the salty embrace of the sea. I plunge through waves, and they hold me more truly than wind, are safer than air. I am caressed and thrashed, clasped by the water that takes my infant body close and cherishes it. I dive lower, down I go and down, feet after heart. Through the blue I convulse, wild in pursuit of this skill I must learn. My ears wash with a liquid purr, my eyes are drenched and calm. There is no need to ascend. I'm happy to remain swaddled in brine, listening to wave rush, tasting salt. But my lungs and limbs possess other desires, and they bellow and push, and up I swoop now, a fish, a vessel, buoyant and propelled, fully in charge of my body. Up I go, breathing the sea breathing me, until I split waves and push myself on through the water, arm over arm, pressing forward, onward, free, unsinkable.